Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Smallville and the DCU because the Elseworlds part of the DCU has yet to be explained to us, and also they haven't announced any films, but we got this great CBR article that we need to break down that talks about the potential link between Smallville and the DCU. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos later this year. So let's get into this. So the title of this CBR article, which you can find in a link in the description below, is 14 years later, this fan favorite DC TV show deserves a place in James Gunn's DCU Elseworlds. So let's go ahead and break this article down. So despite running for 10 seasons on both the WB and the CW, fans are eager for more stories set in the DC universe of Smallville. The show followed a young Clark Kent on his journey to becoming Superman and his friendship with Lex Luthor. While there have been sequel stories, James Gunn's DC Studios could return to Smallville with its Elseworlds imprint for what would be a guaranteed hit. Since taking over at DC Studios, co-CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran have laid out their ambitious vision. And before we move on to the next part of the article, I just want to say, obviously we don't know if it would be a guaranteed hit, and obviously fans of Smallville, like myself, would love to see this come to fruition, whether it be a TV show, an animated show, or a film. I think the door will be open for Elseworlds projects in the future, but I have to say, just to start this video, I don't think any Smallville project is coming anytime in the next couple of years. We know they have plans up until like 2027 maybe, and so I think after that you can start to see some Elseworlds projects coming to fruition, because right now they haven't actually confirmed any. We've only got existing properties that have been worked on that are not linked directly to the DCU, so I'm talking about the Batman here specifically. So let's go on with this article, because Gunn and Safran want to craft a shared continuity called the DC Universe while still creating standalone stories under a DC Elseworlds imprint. While the MCU has featured mainly interconnected stories, DC's history in film and television is more discreet. Still, nearly 15 years after its series finale, interest in Smallville hasn't waned, which is 100% true, because we all know that everyone is clamoring for that animated sequel that they've been talking about so much, that being Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum. So in regards to what happened after Smallville, proving that interest goes on, there was a comic series, basically season 11, that's what everyone called it, and a prominent crossover moment in the Arrowverse where Tom Welling showed up as a different version of Clark Kent, or potentially the same version of Clark, but obviously a lot of time has passed since then, and the series stars Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum launched Talkville, a rewatch podcast for the show, which obviously has a lot of fans lining up every time they release a new podcast show. And also, despite its 10 seasons, Smallville feels like a story with unfinished business, which makes DC Elseworlds a perfect place to perhaps bring closure to a generation of fans. And I think the reason why the writer is saying it feels like it's kind of like open-ended is because we never got to see Clark as Superman properly. Yeah, you got to see those final moments, but you know, Superman's story, there is a lot more to tell there, but the whole premise of Smallville was it's Clark before he becomes Superman. So in a way, they ended at the perfect point, but also there is so much that you can think about and theorize about, like what is Clark's life like past this point? So there are many questions. Now the article goes on to talk about how Smallville had a rough road but did more right than wrong. Basically what we're going to read is going to explain why it was a pioneering effort and has such a big influence on DC over the many years since it's been finished, of course. So unlike most series that undergo cast and format changes, Smallville is essentially 3 shows in one, starting with Clark and his friends in high school and ending with his early career as a superhero in Metropolis. This only proves its versatility. The series maintained a semi-strict no flights, no tights rule for its central hero, a decision that seems designed to be limiting, which was very true. However, the show surprised everyone by using its longevity to examine aspects of the character and the Superman mythos most left unexplored outside of the comics. Which is very true, because that's what Smallville was all about. It wasn't about Superman, it was about Clark Kent, it was about the people around him, it was about Smallville, as obviously the title suggests. and every iteration of Superman, whether it be Superman Lois, whether it be Man of Steel, they all are different. They all have different premises and different things in mind when looking at like what are they going to examine. Superman Lois was about, yes, like Smallville, Superman's friends and family, but it was about Superman at a different stage in his life. He has 2 kids, they have to deal with all of that. So while being a father and fighting criminals in Metropolis and Smallville and everywhere, plus also there was a big focus on Lois Lane because she is the titular character as well in Superman Lois. So Smallville did its thing, Superman Lois did its thing, all the other Superman projects have done their thing, and I think Smallville, in the case of its many seasons, I think they hit the nail on the head. Yes, not everyone's gonna like everything that was in the show. Like even recently, Tom Welling came out saying that he has a least favorite storyline. You can go check that video out, it's up on the channel right now, where I actually talk about that. And for now, let's continue with this. So of course the series had its struggles, from rocky relationships between cast members to the retroactively obvious mishandling of characters. Many elements in the series also seem incredibly dated through a modern lens. However, given these problems, the series still remains not just beloved by its original fans, but popular with new audiences discovering it on streaming, which is very true because it's available pretty much in most countries. Like in the UK, it's available on ITV, if you guys didn't know, if you live here, and you can go ahead and watch it. It doesn't matter that you didn't watch it back when it was released. Obviously, a lot of us, like myself, were too young to actually watch it back then, so we caught up later on. And yes, it's less contemporary, like the Arrowverse is more of like our thing right now, because obviously a lot of us grew up with it, but a lot of people grew up with Smallville, and I talked to a lot of people online who literally grew up week to week tuning into Smallville, and they went through the ups and downs with the show, and obviously they were there when it ended, and then they saw the birth of the Arrowverse. Now the question is, after the Arrowverse has ended, what will come next? Well, we got the DCU, and that's what we're talking about here. So the DC Elseworlds imprint exists to explore new stories outside of the DCU's larger continuity. However, it is also the perfect way to revisit older projects that will still captivate audiences. And now, talking from myself, my opinion, I really want to see this. I want to see older projects brought to life. I want to see revivals. I want to see the Arrowverse brought back, whether it be like an animated show, like the potential Smallville sequel, or whether it be like the continuation of Grant Gustin's Flash. Like, that's something I would love to see. Doesn't have to be in continuity with the DCU, but with Elseworlds, they got a lot of opportunities, and Smallville would obviously be one of the best projects for them to do. Now, obviously, you wouldn't like pick up right after Smallville. You wouldn't do that season 11 again, because the main actors are way older, because it's been a long time, so that doesn't make any sense. So you would have to be creative, and obviously the animated show is a good idea because it's just your voice, right? Like, they can start right after Smallville actually ended. And the article continues by saying, as fantastic as Welling was as Clark Kent, the breakout DC icon in Smallville was Lex Luthor. The character had a tragic arc, going from young Clark's friend to trying to avoid his destiny to the villain DC Comics fans know. Rosenbaum then left the show after season 7, though returned for the finale. If any of the series' characters have more story to tell, it's the most nuanced Lex Luthor fans ever saw on screen. His struggle with the good and bad inside of him is captivating, and it begs to be explored even more, and now, especially now that fans are less precious about adhering strictly to comic book interpretations of characters. Now, the next part of this article talks about Tom Welling, who has regrets about not wearing the Superman suit, and obviously how that links into potential Smallville continuation. So for creative reasons and Welling's own reluctance, fans never saw the original Smallville series finale. The most glaring omission was how the series had to handle the moments where Clark finally dons the iconic Superman costume. Whether over fears of typecasting or a commitment to not fully taking on the Man of Steel's identity, Welling was not keen on wearing the cape and tights. However, with time his attitude changed. This was Tom Welling in an interview. He said this: I think now, because of the 2 boys that I have with my lovely wife, that was like, alright, I think I'm open to the idea now, so if you know anybody, I think it would be great. I think it would be fun to be part of. So after 10 seasons on a series with a grueling filming schedule, which we know all the CW, all the WB shows had, like they would shoot like 9 months a year, it was insane. but it makes sense that Welling was ready to move on from Smallville when it ended. However, in recent years his attitude has changed, which we all know because he started that podcast. He's been at loads of fan conventions talking all things Smallville, and they are developing the Smallville sequel series, which would be a reunion that they're trying to get underway, but they need to get approval and the green light from Warner Bros. Discovery, so it could make for a fantastic DC Elseworlds project, what they are already working on. And as Creature Commandos has proved, animation gives storytellers a certain level of freedom and can appeal to fans of all ages, so I think that's a very important comparison to make. Creature Commandos, it's the first DCU animated show, it's great. Obviously they had a lot of freedom where they got to introduce a bunch of characters including like Batman, you saw Supergirl dead, you saw a version of the Flash who was dead in a scene, you've seen characters like Gorilla Grodd, you've seen Cersei, like there is so much that they could explore. And with Smallville, if they got to do this sequel series, it would be great to have it in animated form because they can do pretty much anything they want. There would be more restrictions due to the age of all the cast members and everything if they were to do a live action continuation. So while the animation would be cheaper to accomplish and allow the series to pick up almost right where Smallville left off, as I said, it's not the only option. A live action reunion could also satisfy fans even if it meant a smaller episode count and more limited story, says CBR. But the next part of the article, and this is the final part we're going to read out, the DC universe is already large but Elseworlds can appease longtime fans. So the 2024 sequel to Joker disappointed almost everyone, not me guys, I enjoyed Joker too. And the Batman Part 2 is delayed as Matt Reeves and company finish the script. Other projects that could fit into the DC Elseworlds imprint are also not going to be ready until the far future, which is very true. As I said at the start of the video, I don't think we know of many Elseworlds projects in development. It's pretty much just the Batman Part 2 right now, but a Smallville reunion or other project would at the very least get fans excited about what is to come. There are numerous projects that could fit into DC Elseworlds already in production, from the Harley Quinn animated universe to the Sandman on Netflix, which obviously are two shows that are already running. Similarly, the freedom offered to standalone stories means lesser known DC properties could be adapted. Meanwhile, the official DCU is already poised to be massive given the announced projects both confirmed in development. However, Smallville remains an early DC triumph, and allowing the series to continue in one form or another would be a clear win for DC Studios. And early on in his tenure, Gunn said DC TV's strategy was effed up in the past, specifically given how disparate all the series were. Casual fans especially may not have understood why series like Titans or Stargirl were excluded from the expansive Arrowverse on CW, which was obviously very together, like The Flash, Supergirl, Arrow, Legends, Black Lightning. They're all very clearly linked, but some shows like Titans were a bit more separate, even Stargirl, although I feel like Stargirl was a bit more connected. And the application of a DC Elseworlds branding is meant to help clarify things for them. But that pretty much does it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Obviously this is a project that I'm rooting for. I mean, I've been covering it as much as I can whenever there is any articles out there or any piece of news from Tom Welling or Michael Rosenbaum, because it's just a project I really want to see. And as I've said before, because you guys know, ultimately I'm an Arrowverse fan. Like, that's where my love of DC comes from, because again, like I said in this video, that's what I grew up watching. I wasn't around when Smallville was first releasing in 2001. I was literally 1 year old, so I'm a fan of Smallville, but you know, like a later fan, I guess you could say. And in a selfish way, I would love for them to set the precedent for a Arrowverse continuation somewhere later down the line. I want Smallville to come first because they've been working on it so much. And then after that, I want to see the return of the Arrowverse in some way, and that would be my ultimate dream. So that does it for this video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It would really help this video get out there. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. But for now, you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video. But for now, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.